to love and lead one another to be devoted followers of Jesus. It all started around this simple idea to build a church where people can be heard, feel loved, and experience the love of Christ. We were so excited, but we had no idea what God was going to do.
When Rockharbor first started, God was stirring in me change and something new in our life. We were a part of a church that we absolutely loved. They were family to us. We loved the people, had close relationship with them. We honestly loved the ministry and what we were doing there. It was just God moving on our hearts and trying to figure out exactly what that looked like. We prayed about different areas in the Northwest, specifically Spokane, Yakima, and we really felt this is where God wanted us.
Once this call was confirmed, I drove around our city and shot a video in the freezing 23-degree weather.
We're above the valley, specifically Meridian, Idaho, the place that God has called us to, the place that He is going to use to do great and mighty things. And this place is absolutely amazing, but more amazing than that is the vision that He has called us to. God is birthing a church. That church is Rockharbor. Rockharbor Church is going to be...
Every time I see that video, I'm reminded of the steps that it took to get there, the uncertainty that was before us, but the overwhelming trust that we had in what God was doing. God began to assemble a team of people who would become our leadership team and help shape and form this church that we now know as Rockharbor Church.
When we prayed about starting Rockharbor Church, I mean, it was like 50 days is what we ended up praying with the Harringtons and a few other families, and just like, is this what we're supposed to do? Because we weren't clear as to what exactly we're supposed to do, but we prayed a lot. And God just began to reveal to us and reveal to the team of people that we were supposed to do this.
For me specifically, my role was number one, to support my husband, to be who he needed me to be an encouragement to him.
God was working on my heart really long before we ever started Rockharbor, specifically with my heart for ministry, my heart for people.
We were in a process of looking for a home church, and so when we started talking to Keith, I guess that's when it kind of hit, like God had been moving in our hearts to maybe be a part of this, as he shared his desire for it to just be that, just all about Jesus.
Everything was fresh and new. We felt like the opportunity was just ripe.
It just seemed like a natural thing to come alongside those two.
When we were going through that process just ourselves to look at what does the local church mean, and to then have a conversation with Keith and Chrisanna and feel where God had led his heart, and to see those two align, that was a very confirming, settling process that I had.
It was just amazing to see all of the details fall into place and his plan begin to unfold. And it began just praying, just begging God to tell us what would come next.
So in between our last church and starting Rockharbor, we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. And Keith and I actually started working at Bed Bath & Beyond for a couple weeks doing inventory, getting up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And there's still some bitterness because of that, because he won the best inventory person of the day one time and got like a $5 gift card to somewhere. And I'm still bitter about that, you know?
Struggling through how to support our families while planning a church was no easy task. I remember when Chrisanna and I were sending out support letters to close friends and family. I'm still blown away by the faith that they had in what God was doing, and for the prayer, support, and financial partnership we received. I don't know how to express the gratitude we felt and still feel to this day.
Well, one thing that Keith and I also talked to each other about, posed the question was, if only 20 people come, do we still start a church? I mean, is it worth it? And we both came to the point where we're like, yes, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to start this regardless, because we didn't know what was going to happen. So,
being older than Doug and Keith by a number of years, it was exciting for us to still feel useful, that we weren't being put out to pasture. This allowed us to pour in our hearts, our blood, sweat, and tears, and put it into something that was going to affect the community and eternity.
I thought we were just the token old people.
Yeah, we represented the old people. Yeah.
It was not clearly defined. The specifics around Rockharbor didn't exist. But we knew from looking at Doug and Keith that God had a plan. God had a mission for them.
In the beginning, we didn't have any hesitation because God had been working on us for 6 or 7 months as we studied what the local church should be like according to His Word. And as you go through that process and as God works on your heart, then when you hear and see that in front of you and the opportunity in front of you, your heart's already ready.
I think from the time that we decided to be part of this, I don't think there were any hiccups, but there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity, right? We'd really decided that God was leading Keith, leading Doug, right, in this direction. We wanted to be part of that, but we didn't really know what that would mean in terms of, buildings and people, and we didn't even know if anybody'd show up, but besides the 10 of us, right? But at the same time, it was that reality that I think has allowed Rock Harbor to grow. Is one of our mantras was, let's stay out of God's way.
One of the biggest challenges we faced initially was, where are we going to meet? God had confirmed in our hearts that we needed to be in North Meridian. We were pretty confident we were going to be meeting in a middle school. Little did we know that God had other plans. This led us to Rocky Mountain High School and the office of Troy Rice, where we had a great conversation, and he approved us to meet on Sunday nights for 1 month with what we told him was 20 to 30 people. I think it was the fact that I still had on my Bed Bath & Beyond name tag that really sold him. Once we secured Rocky, we began our launch team meetings that started out with 10 families and ended with 29. We set out to create what we now know as the Rock Harbor 12. The foundations of our church were set, and now all we needed to do was actually have church. We made a trip to IKEA, Walmart, and Radio Shack, and we were ready for our pre-launch services. Those went off without a hitch, and we even averaged 10 new guests each week, and the momentum was building.
If it's about the gospel,
There was no pretenses. There was a lack of this traditional church setting where you had to look a certain way, dress a certain way.
We wanted people coming in and to feel the warmth from the time you open the door to helping them find the classroom for their son or daughter, that they felt welcome.
Easter Sunday, April 8, 2012, was our first public service. Everyone brought their neighbors, friends, random people that they found on their way there, and we had 387 people. Don't worry, that sounds incredible, but the next week we successfully dropped back down to 135 people. Shortly after that was our first baptism. We snuck into a neighborhood pool and baptized a kid by the name of Kyle. It was our first Rock Harbor baptism. I remember when Jeff Foss told me that one day we would baptize more than 100 people in the river. I didn't believe it. I was just hoping we'd have 100 people at church. Before we knew it, we were hosting our first river baptism just a few months later. To think we've been able to baptize over 500 people in the history of our church brings a tear to my eye. Only God can do that. We went from 1 service to 2, 2 services to 3, all while being portable and asking God, what's next? Bring on 2016. There were 3 questions we were prayerfully asking God. Should we start a multi-site? Should we secure a long-term facility or land? Or do we start another church? After much prayer, God made it very clear that we were to start a church in South Meridian. So in August of 2016, we sent out STONEHILL Church with Doug and Heather Connolly. More than 300 people from Rock Harbor joined. We couldn't be more excited.
Rock Harbor, from the very beginning, had a vision to reach this valley, and we also wanted to be open-handed with that, to allow God to do that in whatever way He wanted, because we didn't know what that was at the time. And so STONEHILL started, then that's when Rock Harbor again blessed us with finances, blessed us with people, blessed us with encouragement and prayer.
In the same month, the elders made an offer on an unlisted property on the corner of Chinden and Tree Farm Way. To think we've been praying for something close to Rocky and God answers our prayers with 21.3 acres, we're still in awe.
So the future of Rock Harbor, I see us doing what we're getting started doing now. I see us having a building and planting churches, sending people out.
If we continue in the vein of loving and leading people to be devoted followers of Jesus, then our goals, our ambitions, they're all in line with what God has for us. And when we're in line with what God has for us, the possibilities are endless.
It's not very many churches that within 5 years go out and plant another church. And we're at STONEHILL now, and when you get the kind of financial support that we got, when you get the people support, I think it just continues on.
I'm just hanging on.
It has been an interesting ride to hang on to what God has been doing.
I think he's going to continue to grow it and use us in unique ways to reach North Meridian specifically, but all over this valley.
I certainly don't see it stopping. I certainly don't see the growth subsiding. Obviously, we've stayed out of God's way in a powerful enough manner that people find themselves attracted to what's here. And I think that attraction is built around the fact that it's real. It's authentic. I mean, the motto of Real Stinkin' People is in fact true.
The coolest part, I think, is the fact that we took our kids through the journey, and our children got to watch faith, and they got to watch just that unique opportunity that we all get just a few times in our life to step into it and say, God, what is it that you could do? And we get to train up our children in following God audaciously. It has been an amazing 5 years, and I can only imagine what's ahead for Rock Harbor. We've been given an incredible opportunity to join God in His work in this valley. God has built Rock Harbor, and God will sustain Rock Harbor. We believe that God has strategically placed us for such a time as this.